Hey everyone, this is Joe at 3D Cart, and welcome to our webinar today entitled Using Bing Webmaster Tools. With us today, I have Duane Forrester, Senior Product Manager of Bing's Webmaster program. And without further ado, for your viewing pleasure, I give you Duane.
Hey everybody, I want to thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. Looks like we've got a pretty good attendance this afternoon on the East Coast and this morning on the West Coast. What I'm going to end up doing today is Joe and I had talked after our last webinar that we did with the 3D Cart group, and one of the big requests that was coming in was an overview of Bing Webmaster Tools. This is the actual product that I run. My name is Duane Forrester, and I'm a Senior Product Manager with Bing. I've been an in-house SEO for well over 12 years now. My last project was here at MSN running the SEO program there. So I do have a fairly broad history in terms of SEO and digital and online marketing. That led me to Bing, where I have rebuilt the tools, and that is what you guys see today. That is my team's effort over the last couple of years, so there's lots there. Now what I'm going to do is Joe is manning Q&A, so if you guys do have questions along the way, you can go ahead and pop them in there, and Joe will call them out. I'm going to go through a presentation here, and it's a fairly dense presentation. There's a lot in here, so some of these things I'll move a little quickly on. If I am moving quickly on it, please trust me. The reason I'm moving quickly is because you should be aware of it, but it's something that you can spend more time on later. I'm going to try to highlight the big ticket items and make sure we get the time in on those, the things that I think are really hands-on and tactical in nature that will help you get work done and kind of improve things for yourselves. So we'll get started in here, gang. Let's move on to our presentation here. Now, obviously, you've got Google Tools and Bing Webmaster Tools. Some of these areas are overlaps. There are the same types of data and information exists in both sets of these tools. I personally recommend using both sets of tools. I use both sets of tools on my own personal websites. The reason I do that is because the items that you see listed in orange or red, depending on how your screen shows it on the right, these are areas where Bing Webmaster Tools has a distinct advantage over Google. This is information that we provide for a website owner that Google does not provide. So we've got organic keyword research, we've got ranking and index stats, we've got a tool called Index Tracker that lets you see how your site looks inside our index. We trigger on canonical alerts. We run SEO reports for you. We have an online SEO analyzer that's on demand, and we have the Link Explorer. And I'll get into a little bit about that later on. It's a really cool tool because it lets you look up competitors' website to see who's linking to them, what keywords they're using, and anchor text and whatnot. So there are some overlaps in here, obviously, but there are some big differences. So you can kind of use both sets of tools and get a much clearer view of how your website looks to the search engines all up. Now, to start everybody off, I'm going to mention the Webmaster Help and How-To Center, because we have detailed documentation in here. When you come into the Help and How-To Center, you're going to see if we have any notices up. If we're doing any webinars, you'll see them listed in here. But you also have access to a range of different topics, and all of the navigation on the left-hand side is set up to take you to specific areas, and that navigation somewhat mirrors what you would see inside the Webmaster Tools themselves. So there's a level of familiarity there for yourselves to make it a little easier to find information and know where to look. So you come in here, there's all kinds of stuff available. We generally try to put help documentation inside the tools itself. So if you're using a tool and you see a little circle with an I, the letter I inside it, you can hover over that and we'll give you more information about that object. You'll see those sprinkled throughout the tools themselves, anywhere we thought where someone might be it might be unclear to them what this is, or further explanation may be more helpful, we've added that in. All of that information is also available here in the Help and How-To Guides section. So if you want to go through things ahead of time, you can do that. Or if you just want to send something over to someone so they can become familiar with it, then again, you can do that. Now in this area, there is the content guidelines that we have listed in here, where we've published the Bing Webmaster Guidelines. We talk about content links, social indexation, things to do, things not to do. We talk about all of these things inside these Webmaster Guidelines. So these are very important things to take a look at to make sure that you understand broadly. They were written to be as clear and concise as possible. Part of that helps us because obviously we can't give away secrets. However, we need to make sure that we are offering you some level of help. So some people have noted that I'm not coming through loudly enough, and if that's still the case, by all means, guys, let me know. I've just repositioned my microphone a bit, and I'll speak up a little bit too. So if there are issues with that, or you could turn up the volume too. That could work. So yeah, all right, we'll keep on going here. There are all kinds of topics in the Webmaster Guidelines too, by the way. What you guys are seeing on the screen here is a snapshot of the top of the page. It goes into quite a bit of detail and information. Now, if you are inside Webmaster Tools and you have multiple websites, this is what you will see when you log in. If you have verified your websites, this data will be populated. If you've not verified your websites, it'll be a blank page with the message that says you need to verify your websites. And from there, you get the verification done, and I'll walk you through that in a minute. You will come in if you have more than one website. You will see it on this page. If you only have one website, we take you directly to the main site dashboard, which, again, I will show you in a moment. This area allows you a very quick look at what data is being showcased and how things are trending. Okay, these are personal websites that I own, and you know, I've got no messages in there. On one of the websites, clicks for search was up. On the appeared in search was down. Pages crawled was down. My indexation was up. It's a really good way for me to understand the reality of what's happening with that website in real time. So anything that's on here is clickable as well when you're inside the tools, and you can change your date range and do whatever you like in there, basically. Now, if you were actually to click on one of those, it will take you to your main dashboard for the website. And up in the top left-hand area there, you'll see a little thumbnail screenshot of the website with the website itself. The great thing about that is, again, if you have multiples, then the reality is you can use the site drop-down and see more of those actual websites. And so when you come in here, if you have this page selected and use the drop-down, you can look at different websites, and just by changing that website, all the data refreshes so that what's current for the website you're looking at is the data you see. Again, right-hand corner there, you can change your date ranges if you like. You can change and select custom dates, but really this page is more of an overview. It's about showing you that site activity, you know, where these clicks are coming from, pages crawled, crawl errors, and whatnot. Now, these little graphs that you see there, almost in the middle of the page, marked as the trends, those lines are called spark lines, and those are clickable. So if you click on them, you will actually be able to see more data behind them. It will show you a larger graph and what's going on with it. Really handy feature is we'll show you your sitemap information right here that you've submitted to us. And we also have the Submit Sitemap feature baked into this location, making it super easy to get to. It exists in the other areas where you would go to submit sitemaps and manage them, but this is kind of a shortcut to it right there. We'll show you a quick snapshot of your search keyword information, inbound links, and then a little lower down on the page, you get into some diagnostic tools, As Bingbot, the markup validator, and our SEO analyzer. So there's a lot going on in this dashboard page. You can use this dashboard page as your point of entry to either enter into these other areas and do more work, or you can do the work right here. Now, I'm going to keep on crawling through here, and we'll kind of get into these in a little more detail. When you come into the Configure Your Site area, this is what you see. You see the sitemaps here, and this is where you would submit them, whether you've submitted any URLs to us or not, because we do offer that functionality inside our tools. If you've submitted them, we're going to show you what's in there, and we're going to give you your limits as well that show you how many more you are allowed to submit during the coming month. You're allowed up to 50 a month, so the number is fairly low, and we do that to discourage spamming. But if you have a website and you have new content that you think is very important and it's not being indexed quickly, you can come in here and submit that URL. There's also things you can do in here for ignoring URL parameters. So if you have a version of a URL that you're using for tracking or for a sales campaign or something, and it's causing you to have duplicate content issues because there's two versions of the URL, you can tell us to ignore that parameter in here as well. Simply submit the parameter, we'll tell you what the date is on it, and you're off to the races. If you want to control Bingbot, this is where you will do it. You will come into the crawl control area, and this is a drag and drop graph. So you can position your mouse anywhere on here, just click and drag and create the graph you want for us to follow. Now the graph that's represented here is representative of my West Coast location, and what it basically says is I want Bingbot to crawl my websites faster and harder in the off-peak times. So when my business is offline, when my customers are not there and I have extra bandwidth, I want the search engine to come in, crawl all my content, find everything. And then as we start getting into my business day and my customers start showing up, I want Bingbot to slow down and go very slowly and light on my website. And then after my customers are gone, pick up the pace again. So when you come in to do this, you can do this anytime you like. You can do this as frequently as you like. It's totally within your control. There are no limits on it. You simply come in, change the time and rate, you click on the big button, you'll drag and drop, you'll hit save, and you're off to the races. Now inside there, when you get into this feature, and I'll show you this in more detail in a couple more slides, there are drop-down options that exist that are kind of pre-programmed. And so you can tell us that you want Bingbot to stay away between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. your local time, and the graph will be automatically constructed for you when you select that option. Either way works. Now I mentioned the, or I didn't mention, but here it is, the blocked URLs that we offer. If you have block or a URL that you want to block that you do not want to show in search, this is where you will submit them. You will simply click block a URL. You will tell us what entity it is, whether it's a page, domain, subdomain, that kind of idea. Whether you want the URL and the cached version, or just the cached version blocked. You can select those. And then we will tell you that it expires in 90 days. So from the time it was blocked to when it expires is 90 days. The block will come up. You will get a reminder email telling you that you have blocks expiring. You can come in and extend the block as often as you want. But this does require maintenance. It isn't something that you do once and forget about. What we have found is people will do that and then complain that their pages are not being indexed, and we only learn afterwards the reason they put the block in place is because they were constructing something new on that URL, and they didn't want portions of it while it was under construction to be in the index. So they tried to block it so that it would come out of the index for us, not be shown to users, but then they forgot to unblock it and then complained that the traffic wasn't coming. Now, the sitemap area, I'm going to show you guys this one. This is an area where this is where you would come in to submit your sitemaps. You simply put in the URL for your sitemap, and off you go. Right? The different formats that we take in are RSS 2.0, Atom.3, Atom 1, and text files. So my recommendation for all of you is take the RSS feed that you have from your website and stick it in here and submit that as your sitemap for us. We require sitemaps that are very clean. That means 99% of the URLs in your sitemap should return a 200 OK when we click on the link. Means that page should resolve to what it's supposed to. No 301s, no 404s, no 500 errors, no nothing. 99 out of 100 URLs should be clean. If there's less than that, we begin to mistrust the sitemap, we stop visiting it, and then you're working on something that doesn't pay you any dividends. So, again, I recommend submit the RSS feed as your sitemap. That way we get your freshest content faster. So, you want to make sure you stay on top of that, folks. Submit URLs, I mentioned this one earlier. You can come in here, 1 per line, and so you can do 50 a month, 10 per day. You simply put the URL in, hit submit, and then we will show you the list of it. If you see something in the list that still hasn't been in the index, or you want to resubmit it again, you can simply click on the box to highlight it, the little check mark shows up, and then hit resubmit, and off it goes. What this does is it submits the URLs directly to the Bing index. So instead of going through the normal process of crawling and testing and vetting and everything else, this goes straight to the index, and then we see how it performs. This is really important for you guys, because if you feel that you have quality content and you want it really well indexed, well then you can use this tool and see how it performs. If it goes into the index, it shows up and it actually ranks well and stays there, that means people are engaging with it. That means when we show it in a search result, people are clicking on it and they like it, they stay engaged with it. If, on the other hand, it shows up and disappears quickly, that means we've tested it and people didn't click on it, they didn't engage with it. We probably have a different result that they are engaging with, which is why the other result is outranking you. You have to be very honest with yourself about this, because when we run these tests, we put you into the index, you may see yourself there for one query and then it disappears. And you think, oh, well, that wasn't very good. The reality is, in the time it took you to index it, it got in there and then went into the system. And for you to come back and do your one query, we've run a few 100,000 queries through the system at that point. And there's a lot of activity out there, so we can get a good sample size with you included in that mix extremely fast. And if it looks like you're going to perform well and you're going to impress people, awesome. Then we'll keep you in there. But if we see we put you up there and no one clicks on you and they consistently click on the one under you, then we're gonna drop that number 2 up to number 1 and you're gonna fall down again. So this is a great way for you to kind of test things out and make sure your fresh content is getting indexed with us. Now, geo-targeting, this one's awesome. So let's say you have a website and you want to be very clear about where you target. In this example, we have a subdomain. That subdomain targets Canada, whereas the main domain targets the United States. And this tool allows you to do that. You can select on page level, directory level, subdomain level, simply enter the URL, you select the region that you want to target, and you hit submit, and off you go. So this is a fantastic tool for helping to manage those things, especially if you've got international areas that you point people to. Really helpful here having the geo-targeting. And I'm going to point out, I mentioned earlier that help information that's available with the little circle with the eye in it. You can see it right here after the word targeting and geo-targeting in the title for this section. If you were to hover over that, you would see an explanation for what geo-targeting is and how to use this tool. All right, Site Move, another useful tool here. This one allows you to tell us that you're moving content around or moving entire websites around, right? The major options on this one, you're moving a URL from one place to another within a current website. Or you're moving URLs from this website to another verified website. So if you're going to move from one domain to another, you want to make sure you have both domains verified with the tools, and then you can simply come in and say, I'm moving the URLs from my old website to my new website, and hit submit. That will help us transfer value and move things around for you. It is advisable that you still manage with 301s as well. You want to make sure that, because while we will use this to help pass value and understand what you're doing with your website, if people have bookmarks in place, this has no impact on their bookmarks. So that 301, on the other hand, if they click on your old location, they'll still get to your new content. So you still have to manage these things on multiple levels because of the different users and how they want to access your content. Now, I mentioned the ignore parameters, the ignore URL parameters earlier. And so if you have parameters in your URLs that you want us to ignore, this is where you would put it in. You've got a limit of 100 parameters per site. So this is awesome. If you have product pages, for example, and things are different based on color. So it's one particular object, and there are 5 different colors, which means you have 5 unique URLs. You may want to tell us to ignore the color parameter, and then we will ignore, say, 2 through 5 in your examples. But number 1 still gets listed, which is what you want, because from there, the user can click on a drop-down that allows them to select the color within the web page. The user doesn't know that the URL changes. We do, however. So you can use this to manage scenarios like that. It is something, however, that is not a full block. So if you have something that you do not want crawled, you do not want indexed, you need to use robot.txt or the meta tags to actually command the crawler. What this is going to do is tell us that your intent is, in this example, we have a print example here right in the middle of the pack, and the intent with this is that we should not index the whack print whack folder. And that's totally fine. It's easy to manage. However, if you did not want those full stop, do not want those in the index, and you absolutely have to ensure that you need to go ahead and put that in robot.txt or put a meta no index no follow into the code itself. So these are suggestions. They're really helpful in trying to manage some of the duplicate content issues that can come up. But I know from experience, I think you guys are pretty well sorted in terms of the product, the 3D cart product. So less of a concern on that, unless maybe you're running dedicated advertising campaigns and maybe creating tracking URLs, and that could create a bit of an area where you would want to manage in this. Now, I mentioned that crawl control earlier, and this is what it looks like inside the tool. This drop-down, you would actually click on the drop-down, and then you'd see a menu. There's like 3 or 4 items in that menu. You can click anywhere in here and scroll to create whatever type of graph that you want for us, and then you have to click Save. Once you click Save, this becomes how Bingbot comes to your website after that. And again, unlimited number of times you can come in, change this, do whatever you like with it. Totally up to you guys. Block URLs, we talked about this one, so we'll skip past that one. Disavow links, this is a handy one. So let's say you've got some website is linking to you and you kind of don't like it. Then you can actually come in here and tell us, the search engine, that, you know, hey, look, this is a page, this is a domain, this is a subdomain, here's the URL, and I do not want any credit from that website. It's a way for you to tell us that you don't particularly like that website, you don't particularly trust that website, and you don't really want to be associated with that website. And you can simply come in, tell us what they are, add them in, and you'll tell us whether it's a domain, a directory, or a page, and then that's it. It's very straightforward after that, right? There's no impact to your rankings when you do this, because realistically, we're already filtering these things out. If there's a sketchy website that's linking over to you, we're really not going to pass any value from them in the first place. And we're certainly not going to penalize you because they put a link up to you. We understand that that's beyond your control in a lot of instances, so it's not going to be an issue for you. So you shouldn't see any rankings moves when you're using this tool. But it is a great way for you to help us understand what your intent is. So this can help you pay dividends by telling us, look, I think that website is kind of, untrustworthy and I don't want to be associated with it. And then if we encounter a situation down the road where we're trying to determine if we think you're buying links from a website, well, we may simply look at that and say, well, you know what? This website owner has been straight up with us in the past. They have a good history with us. We're going to err in their favor and pass value through that and assume they're not buying links. So it really does help inform us as to what your intentions are as a business and as a webmaster. Now, verifying ownership. There's 3 ways to do this, okay? And when you get started, you'll end up with a blank page that will ask you to verify your ownership, and then you will click in. You will see there are 3 options. The first option, place an XML file on your web server. It's fairly straightforward. If you have access to the root of your domain, you simply click on this option. We will give you this URL, and in that we will give you the code that's generated specific for your account. You will create a file that is called bingsiteauth.xml. You will place it on the root of your domain, and then in the end you come back and you click on a button that says verify, and we go check it, we see the file, and we start sharing data with you. Another way, very popular way, is to copy and paste the meta tag into your default web page. The first option assumes that you have access to the root of your domain, means you have access to the server. The second option assumes that you may have access to the server, but at the very least you have access to the code of your home page. And we give you the directions very clearly. You want to put this in the head section, and we will give you this meta tag. It will be generated exactly for you, and the content equals, that number, that alphanumeric sequence will be unique for this particular domain. You will copy that in and place it right there. There's an example of how this would look inside your code, and you're all set. Where you place it inside the head is irrelevant. In this example, it's above the title tag. You could put it below the title tag. It does not matter, but it matters it's inside the head code. And now, if you're a big company or you have complete control over things, you can do what's called a CNAME record change in your DNS. If what I just said is completely Latin to you and you do not understand it, Don't worry about it. You can focus on the other two options. They are all valid. They all work the same way. If, however, you do have access to your DNS records and you can make a CNAME change, this is a great way for large businesses to manage these things, because they can do this without having to go through all of the hoops and hurdles that large companies put in place for managing their web assets. For example, I work at Microsoft. If I wanted to verify a website here, it could take me up to a month to get a meta tag added to a web page. If I wanted to add a new web page into the server itself, that could take up to 6 months. So, in order for me to get around all that, what I can do is go to the people who control the CNAME access, the DNS access, actually get permission from the website owner, and then our webmasters would go in, make that CNAME change, and our system here at Bing Webmaster Tools will pick up on that. It's proof of access and control, so that's basically proof of ownership, and then we can start sharing data with you. That third option is really for larger websites or for folks who are really savvy as systems administrators. If you have the access and you want to do it, it literally takes as much time as anything else. All right, now this one's kind of neat because inside Webmaster Tools, you guys have the ability to assign users. Now, this was great. When I was working at MSN, managing the SEO program, we always had managers coming by wanting access to the tools. They wanted to go in and see things, run reports for themselves. They had questions about things. They were curious. And almost every time one of them would go in, we would go in afterwards and see that they changed things. They moved different settings around. They changed things. They deleted information. And it was just them curious, trying to understand it. And that's a dangerous situation. So these tools can be used to really change how the search engine interacts with your website. You have to be careful with them. So you have control in here to add people in as actual individuals. You add their email in here, and then you can come in and say, here's the URL that we're talking about, and then assign a role to them. So you can assign administrator, which means they have absolute control of everything, meaning they too can add people into this list. They can do read modify, which is control of everything except the ability to add users and change roles. And then there's read only, which is fantastic for folks who want to understand what you're doing but do not need to actually change anything in the tools or do any of the work in the tools. So you can come in, you can add as many of these people as you like. We recommend that you always have at least 2 administrators, because if someone leaves your company, the other administrator can come in and change the rights on their email addresses, move them out. We have heard of people in the past leaving a company and then harming a website through Google Webmaster Tools. I haven't heard it through Bing Webmaster Tools yet, but it's possible, so I'm sure it will happen at some point in the future. But as a business, this is a way for you to protect your business asset. Now, reports and data. This is, we're going to get a little more in-depth here and show you guys what type of data that we actually show, right? In this example, we're talking about the page traffic, and we show you this graph on the main page, and you can obviously on the right-hand side click whatever data you want to see. I have pages indexed, pages crawled, and clicks from search. That's what I've opted to show in here. And as I hover around inside this graph area, this line shows up, and this line represents a particular day, so May 29th, and it gives me the data that I asked for. So my clicks from search, the number of pages that were crawled, the number of pages that were indexed at that time. And so it's a really quick and easy way to see things like, hey, what's my graph look like? You know, the number of pages indexed going up or down, the number of crawls going up or down. More importantly, how much traffic am I getting from this? And I'm looking at this seeing, you know, we had a little uptake there at about the 3rd week of May, and then it was cruising along for about a week or so, maybe 10 days, and then it dropped down. Am I really concerned about it? Not really, because it generally is not far off where I started my reporting period a month prior. So around 350 clicks for this particular domain, and that's held true all the way through the 1-month period. So nothing to worry about. The data that's shown in here is pulled from Bing and Yahoo. So whether you guys are being shown in Yahoo SERPs or in Bing SERPs, we will pull the data from there. So very straightforward. The data is combined so you get a truer view of what you're looking at. Now, when you actually come into the page traffic area and you start looking into this detail, we're going to show you the page or the actual URL. You can pop this out if you like and see the page itself. We'll give you all of this data that's in here, clicks from search, appeared in search, your actual click-through rate, your average search click position, so where you were positioned when someone clicked on you, and the average search appearance position, so where you appeared in search. Now, obviously, these can differ, and they will differ, because we continually move people up and down trying different things, okay? Now, if you were to hover over one of these things and just click on that, what you will end up seeing is what's on our next page. It will expand out to show you details related to that particular and individual URL. We'll show you the keywords. We're going to show you the number of clicks you got, where you appeared, that click rate again, the average position, and the average appearance. So where you got the click and where you appeared. Now you can add or see more or less data around these particular URLs. And when you come in and see more data, oh, I'm sorry guys, I'm too quick on this one. When you see more data, what it will tell you is where you actually ranked. And there's another screenshot coming up that will illustrate that for you. But this is a really great way to dive deep on a URL to understand what it's ranking for and then what of those keywords is actually driving your traffic. When you combine this data with your keyword research, you begin to understand if your website is performing as you intended on the targeted keywords that you selected. So really rich data, really important stuff. Now I mentioned Index Explorer earlier, and this is a really great tool. It's set up like a file folder, like a filing cabinet, and what it does is it shows you from your domain how many folders we have. It'll tell you certain things like all of that data, whether it's appeared in search, how much clicks you've got, the number of inbound links pointed at it, and as you actually click on something, if you actually click on these URLs, you will see, I did it again, I went too quickly, you will see more information in the third area where it will talk to you about that particular URL. You know, we discovered it more than 6 months ago. It's got a HTTP code of 200, meaning it's okay. We see it fine. There's 154 links pointed at this particular one. The document size, the last time it was crawled, all this data is in there about that particular URL. So this is an excellent way to understand whether something's actually in our index. If it's in Index Explorer, that's in the Bing index. You have filters up across here, so you can filter for whatever you like. If you're looking for 404 errors, malware, any of these things, if you click on these, it will filter all of your data by that. So really handy item. One last thing on this is, if you have a URL and it hasn't been crawled in a little while, you can click recrawl in the top right-hand corner for that individual URL, and it will come and check that individual URL. Now, search keywords. This is some good stuff. Great data in here. We're going to show you all the keywords that you ranked for. We're going to give you that same information on when you, or how many clicks you got, how many times you appeared, what the click rate looked like, your average position, the average where you showed versus where you got clicked. And then if you click on View, you will get this expanded version. It will show you this URL. You'll click on the plus, and it will show you more data down here. So you get the same information horizontally telling you, hey, you know what, you got your click and you were at 4.3 roughly. Your average spot is 4.2, so generally you're getting the click where you're listed. But we're going to show you when you are in 4th, 5th, 3rd, and 8th position, because you get that average of 4.3 by being moved up and down the search rankings. We're going to show you the number of clicks you got and how many times you appeared. It has a dramatic effect on your click rate. However, when you look at this, it's obvious that when I was in the 4th position, I appeared 238 times, and I actually got 8 clicks on that. So I did a lot better, almost 150% better in position number 4 than in position number 5. That's only one spot in the difference in rankings, and you see what a difference it makes in terms of the amount of clicks you get and the actual click-through rate that you're going with. When you aggregate this up, especially for larger websites, you know, these differences become very meaningful. Now, I'm going to touch on the SEO reports here. I'm going to kind of take us through the tail end of this stuff a little bit faster, because what I would like to do is I would actually like to wrap up by leaving some time for Q&A, but also taking you live through my own Webmaster Tools account. So you see what is in here right now. You see it all as PowerPoint, but I'd like you guys to see that live in action as well. So the SEO reports exist in here. If your site is verified, we will run the reports every 2 weeks for you, and they will be there in the background waiting for you. And this is what they look like. We're going to tell you the severity of them over here. We're going to tell you how many of those error counts we found across how many pages we looked at. We're going to tell you every one of these items that are on here. And then every couple of weeks we refresh this. So if you do some work, you'll see some changes in this. But the great thing is, if you are an SEO, you can look at some of these things and say, I already know what this is. For example, I know that these 5 pages that are missing the titles, these are pages that I don't want indexed anyhow. So I'm not worried about those. I'm not going to do that work. Title is too long and too short. Those 7 pages, I know exactly what they are, and the titles are perfect for what the pages are. I'm not worried about that. When you look into the actual reporting itself, and I'll show you that in a moment, what will happen is we will give you an explanation of why we're making this recommendation for you. And in that recommendation, you will see why we say, hey, you know what, your title should be X number of characters or longer between this and this. And so that's why the rule gets triggered. In some cases, you're totally okay outside the rule, so you don't need to worry about it. Now, this is our inbound links reporting data. And this is specific only to the domain we're looking at. But what it's doing is it's saying, you know, hey, on December 20th at this time, we had 6,300 links pointed at the site. So that's great. It's a nice graph to understand which links Bing are seeing. These numbers will differ between search engines, so you don't compare them directly. You use them as trend indicators over time. And again, you can change your time up here in the top right-hand corner. You can set a custom time frame or preset drop-downs for 30, 60, 90 days, whatever you like. And then if you come in, you will be able to see the number of links that are on here. And if you click on one of those numbers, you get this expanded report that says, hey, here are the URLs that link to this URL, and here's the anchor text that they use to link to you. This is an awesome way because maybe you want to contact the owner of the website and say, you know what, I don't really want to use, in this instance, trip checks. I would rather you use off-road checklist. Could you change that link text for me, that anchor text for me? And it's a great way to be able to manage your links if you're into managing links. And if you see links pointed at you in here that you don't like, go on over, head to the Disavow Links feature, and then you can use this to help feed into the Disavow Links that you want us to see you ignoring. Now, the crawl information area, this is a great area, but it's a light touch area. You shouldn't have a lot to do in here, okay? You should not be returning a lot of 400 errors. You should not be returning any 500 errors. 301s, 302s, they'll be shown in here, obviously. Malware, robot.txt occlusions. If we hit your system and the DNS is not set up properly, we'll notice that. We'll put connection timeouts in here, so if we consistently try to reach you and it looks like everything's okay, but we just keep timing out, we're going to flag that. And then anything we do have in here, in this instance, I have 301s. If you see these 15, they're listed down below, and it's saying these are your 301 codes, and here are the pages that the 301s are applied to. Also, here are the number of links coming into a particular page. So you know how many links are pointed at that URL. Maybe it's an older URL, there's still a lot of links, and you want to reclaim that. You want to get that web page back up and running, or you want to maintain that 301. Totally up to you, but this data can help you understand that. Now, our diagnostics and tools, this is kind of the main page for these tools. Each page has its own area or its own web page, but this is an overview. We've got the organic keyword research tool in here, Link Explorer. If you've ever used Yahoo Site Explorer, you're going to love Link Explorer because it's basically a replacement for that tool after Yahoo shut it down. It allows you to go in, and I'll show you this, look up information on a competitor's website. You can fetch As Bingbot to see what we're seeing. You can use our markup validator to understand if you're using rich snippets or marking up your code that it's done correctly. And the SEO Analyzer, which is our on-demand area where you can put in a URL, tell us to go analyze it. We will hit the URL immediately, and then we will give you a report of what SEO work is needed on that web page. Those web pages, they do need to be live on the internet. We cannot go into pre-production areas. They have to be accessible on the internet for us to see it. Keyword research, pretty straightforward stuff, except The keyword research tools that are available today are based on paid search advertising. So if nobody buys an ad on a keyword, the data will not show up inside Google's tools and whatnot. Google is shutting down their public AdWords tool anyhow. This tool is available, and it brings in organic search data, so it doesn't matter whether somebody's bought an ad on it. It shows you what's happening across Bing and Yahoo. And Google's tools are limited to the last 30 days. We'll let you go back up to 6 months to do keyword research. So this lets you create graphs that help you understand where seasonality is, whether things are spiking for some reason. It really helps you get a better view of what's going on in there. So you simply type in what you want, one per line. You tell us if you want to target a particular country or language. Most times you're just going to leave that as all. You tell us a date range that you're looking for. If you want strict, it's like wrapping quotes around it. If you want things that are more broadly related, don't turn strict on. And then that's it. If you want to go back to do something that you've recently done, you click on the history icon right below the search button, and we will give you a list of the last lookups you did. Because as you're doing your keyword research, you may follow a thread and then say, no, that's not what I wanted. And rather than having to start over again, you can go into history, click on it, and it'll repopulate everything for you. Now, Link Explorer, this is the cool one. So you would put in your competitor's website. You can filter by their site. You can filter by anchor text. You can put other information in there. You can scope to a URL or a domain. And you can also look at whether it's internal or external from their website and within their website. And then you will run this, and you will see who's linking to them, the anchor text that they're using, whether they're pointing at a particular page. I love the anchor text one because if I have anchor text that I'm trying to target, I can put that in and see if people are using that to point links at my competitors. That'll help me understand then, is that competing website going to be harder to compete against because everybody linking to them uses that same anchor text. So, really useful tool in here. And again, we go right back to the very beginning. This is one of the tools that was highlighted in orange that exists within Bing that does not exist within Google. Still useful for you because you can apply the knowledge you get toward the work you do that works in Google and Bing. So very useful in that manner. Now, Fetch As Bingbot. I love this tool because it's a really great way to help you understand what we're seeing. It also is a great way, if you're not used to looking at the code of your web page, it's a great way for you to get familiar with it. And you want to do that for a very good reason. When you put something in here, a URL, and you hit Fetch, Bingbot goes out immediately, crawls it, and brings it back. We'll show you a pending notice until our report is completed. Then the word changes to completed. If you click on it, you will actually see a version of this code that you see right now on the page in the little window. What's important about understanding what your code looks like is that if you get used to this, you will be able to see if somebody has hacked your website. WordPress blogs are particularly susceptible to this. They will do injections of links. They will show up in the code of the page so the crawlers see them, but they do not show up visually, so humans and visitors to your website never see those links. Oftentimes, your first clue that there's a problem is if you have contextual advertising like AdSense running on the website, you'll start seeing ads that are unrelated to your website showing up. This is a way to be able to go in and see what that code looks like immediately. And then if you see that there's something in that code that should not be there, you will be able to take action on it. You'll be able to talk to the IT people, get things cleaned up, make sure you close down any loopholes that people have used to get in there and exploit things. But it does require that you understand what your code normally looks like, because we don't know what you have or have not put in there. We're only reporting on what we found. So we cannot tell you if something is correct or incorrect, whether it's accurate, inaccurate. We simply report what we find. But this is a really great way for you to be able to look at that stuff quickly. Now, the SEO Analyzer, this is our on-demand tool, right? And I mentioned earlier, you put in the URL, you hit Analyze. We're going to give you the SEO suggestions. We're going to color code them and tell you, red is important, yellow is less so, and blue can wait. If you hover over, and what you will see in the right-hand pane here is you'll see your web page in the background, and then we're going to have an overlay on top of that. And you're going to see these little dots on there that correspond color-wise to the error counts that you see. And if you actually click on that dot, so in this case, Jeep, Land Rover, and Range Rover News is highlighted, you'll see that it has a minus symbol inside the dot. That's because it's been expanded. and it's saying, hey, there's multiple H1 tags that exist in the source code, and it's showing you what that is and what it looks like inside the code. If you go to the next one, you'll see another H1 tag there. And this is a pretty common problem with WordPress. This is a WordPress installation that it uses a lot of H1 tags in many of their templates. This tool will call that out because the best practice is to have only one H1 tag on the page. As HTML5 becomes more adopted as a common programming language, that rule will have to change because multiple H1 tags exist for a lot of styling elements in HTML5. So we will simply have to change the rule on our end. In fact, you can ignore this rule now because we will look at the first H1 tag and we will say, oh, okay, well, you must mean that's applicable. The data inside it is applicable to SEO. And we assume all the other H1 tags you're talking about are for style. So nothing to worry about here. But that's where being a smart SEO and staying current in SEO really pays dividends, because you can look at things like this and say, I understand why the rule exists, but it doesn't apply to me. I know I can ignore that and move past it. So really useful tool in here. One thing that you want to make sure you remember, though, is this is an on-demand tool, and it does one page at a time. There is no ability for this to go crawl your whole site and do reporting on demand. What we have for that are the SEO reports that I showed you earlier that exist already. Now, Verify Bingbot, this is a fairly new tool. If you are wondering if the traffic that you're seeing on your servers is actually coming from Bingbot, you can take the IP address, enter it in here and submit it. We'll do the lookup on our end to check with our system to see if that in fact is Bingbot, and then we'll report back to tell you that it is or is not Bingbot. A lot of times, crawlers will show up and they will spoof Bingbot or Googlebot, tell you that they are Bingbot or Googlebot, and make it look like it's us, but in fact it's not us. The other thing you can do in here is if you think you have a problem, you can click this link to report an issue with Bingbot. Now, an area that's very important that you guys take an action in is your profile area. So at the top of the page, in the header, there's an area for the profile. You need to fill this in, and we recommend that for the email address, you create an internal alias for everyone on your SEO team or your digital marketing team. And when we ping this email address, and we do with alerts, for example, if we find malware on your site, you want to get that alert pretty quickly. And if we see that, we will ping the URL, and that will go to the alias, and everyone on your team will see that alert right away. But you have to fill this in, and then you have to actually give us permission. There's a selection at the bottom that gives us permission to actually email you. We cannot email you unless you give us that permission. Finally, as we start coming to the end here, the Webmaster API. If you guys have your own tools or work in other areas, we have an API. This API is generated against your particular login. So it is specific to your actual individual account. Now you can grab that API key and you can use that data. About 90% of the tools data is available via the API. Some things are not available, like you can't run the SEO Analyzer on demand via the API. You will not be able to do keyword research via the API. But you can use this data in a lot of other ways. So get in there and try it out. And we will continually on our end as well be adding things or updating things within the API stack itself. So if you have that facility, you do find that useful, the API is there for you. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now that if you need me, I am at Duane Forrester on Twitter. I am easy to get a hold of. I'm going to leave that up for a second, and then what I'm going to do is I am going to wrap up our presentation, and I'm going to hop over to my live account so you guys can see some of these things in action, because we have a few more minutes here before we wrap up. So if you guys have questions, fire them over to Joe. Joe can bring them up. In the meantime, I'm going to walk you guys through a quick run through this live example of what you're seeing inside my own personal Webmaster Tools account. So this is the multiple domain page that I told you about. So I have a bunch of domains that are registered in here. The bottom will bring in, what our Webmaster Center blog is, the latest stuff there, and information from the search blog at Bing as well. If you have a URL in here, but it's not verified, this is the message you will get. And then when you click on it, it takes you to the verification process. So let's just click in here because I know there's lots of data behind this one. On the left-hand side, you see all our navigation up here. It's pretty easy to use. You can hide it if you like. So if you want a bigger graph because you want to copy and paste something from your screen to a report, you can easily get rid of that navigation for yourself. And so I'm actually going to come in here to Link Explorer, and I'm going to take a look at a competing site to mine. It's not really a competing site, but it's close. So I want to take a look at this, and I want to take a look at anybody who's linking to them with the word Cherokee, which is a model of Jeep, and I want to see what this looks like against their particular website. So now, these are the source URLs of all of the pages that are linking to my competitor with the word Cherokee, and this is the title of those actual web pages that are listed in here. So it's easy for you to understand who these people are and what they're doing. There's a lot more than what's shown in here, and this is one of those instances where the API will actually give you more data. Because if you have the API, we're limited for the amount of data we can showcase on a web page. This just happens to fill this web page almost perfectly. Typically, we can go down to about 100 in the actual web interface. That expands quite a bit through the API because we don't have page load time issues and whatnot. But it is a very handy way to be able to look at data that is pertinent to you, but from something that's important for maybe your competitor, for you to help understand why it's important and how to use that yourself. So I'm going to hop into SEO Analyzer quickly, and let's go with a new website that I have. And it works this fast. I tell it to go, and it goes out, it takes the screen capture, and it comes back, and it says, okay, you've got 2 problems with this web page. 1, you've got 10 H1 tags on here. 2, the description is missing in the head of the section of this page. That makes total sense to me. Again, a WordPress installation, it uses H1 for all of its styling elements, so as you scroll down, you will see all of the multiple H1s that are being shown in here. And so if we were to go back up and I just click on one of these, it will expand and show me multiple H1 tags, and I can expand that again. It tells you the recommended action, remove the redundant H1 tags. It shows you what it looks like in the code and where it's wrapped, and then you can just collapse it if you want to get rid of it. Now, I know that the actual description is missing in this because WordPress, again, doesn't put this in as standard in the template I'm using. This is where using a plugin for something like WordPress can really help you out, because those plugins will allow you a very discrete area that will get wrapped as a description tag inside the head, and then you can simply write the words in there yourself. Makes it very easy to perform the basics of SEO. These are hobby websites for me, so I'm really not worried about that stuff. However, I do have the option to implement these things. Now, if I want to change the view on this, this is where I told you we were looking at the actual website itself and overlaying this information in here. But if I want, I can look at the page source code and see where all of these things are inside the page source. There's one. It's going to highlight it for you in yellow. There's the second one, and so on, all the way down the page code. And then if I just want to say, okay, this is all confusing, what does the page just normally look like? Again, we're going to show you that original web page where you can simply say, okay, right, it's over here. I have a problem in the archives area. That's where that was highlighting. Great. So really useful tool to be able to take a look at this stuff. One thing I am going to point out, because we are in here, and this is my website, and I run these tools, I have access to an admin portal that you guys will not see in your accounts. So don't be hitting me on Twitter saying, how come I don't have admin portal? It's because you're not an administrator. I am the administrator of Webmaster Tools. That's why I have admin portal in here. But as we wrap up, I'm going to, now we'll go into reports and data on the main page here. I'll leave you guys with some really nice graphics. So this is the graph that we looked at earlier that I was showing you. You can move around and see what the data looks like. And what I want to know is, we'll go with pages crawled. What the heck, we'll go with this. Oh, continue, there we go. And so this data just comes in, and as I move my cursor around, it just moves the line along and tells me everything about these things. So June 20, well, let's go to the 26th. That was my birthday, so I got 34 clicks on search for this website. I appeared 811 times. They crawled 180 pages, and I had 331 pages in the index on that day. And then I can just start clicking and getting more and more information in there. Last thing that I'm going to talk about, guys, is we have a specific area for malware. Not only will we email you if you allow us to, but if we find malware associated with your website, we will showcase that information inside here. Very important you keep this one point in mind when it comes to malware. Your system may be clean, but if you're using something from a third party that is called from their servers and their servers are infected, we will flag you as having malware because you are a straight path for the searcher to follow to a system that is infected, and we want to block that. We want to make sure that the searcher, above all, is protected. So be very careful with this. Use these tools. I want to thank you all for your time today. It's been fantastic to be here with you, and I hope that some of you guys will check out Bing Webmaster Tools. Joe, are you still kicking around?
Yep, I'm still here.
Awesome.
I've answered some of the questions while you were doing the webinar, actually.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, there were a variety, but some were somewhat basic, and some actually were kind of unrelated, so I just took care of those. I do have somebody asking a question, Terry, and I'm not really sure I understand the question.
Well, put it out there, and let's see if we can figure it out.
I think it's in relation to rich snippets.
Okay.
When crawling a website that has model products and the product model is used, must associated products be on the same page?
Okay, so assuming this has to do with rich snippets and marking up content, the answer is there's no must. It's entirely up to you. The point behind using rich snippets or marking up your content is to help the search engine have a better understanding of what the content is, and therefore a better understanding of what the website is about all up. So it's up to you. If you want to include the extra information and data, by all means go ahead, but that's your call. We want as much information and data as we can get. You have to find the balance point between the amount of work that you have to do versus the return that it gives you.
A real good question just popped. Is Bing Webmaster Tools free? And if not, how much does it cost? Yes, it's absolutely free.
No. Give out my PayPal address. I'm kidding. It's totally free, gang. Bing Webmaster Tools is completely free. There is the value that Bing gets from this is we do have a better understanding of websites and webmasters' intentions, which helps us produce better quality search results. And if we can help you with SEO reports and related information, if we can help you build a better product, that again helps us. So we're happy to share this data and this information through the Webmaster Tools.
And that's why it's free. And I think so many of us live in such a commercialized world, we wonder, like, well, how can this be free? Well, it's free because it's giving you guys great information, so that's good enough.
Absolutely. We get a lot of value. There's no question about that. Our value just isn't monetary.
We had some questions pop up about WordPress, and I think that the main reason is because most of the 3D Cart customers don't have a need for WordPress.
Yep.
So just to throw that out there in case there's some listeners who aren't yet 3D Cart customers or considering 3D Cart, WordPress is really a content management system that can be used for building all kinds of different websites. E-commerce or non-e-commerce, but primarily for blogging or non-e-commerce websites. We give you blog functionality inside of 3D Cart that's built in, so you don't have to have a WordPress blog, but there are a lot of plugins for WordPress blogs that make them do really wild and crazy things that a lot of times people want. So with that comes with that comes the exposure to malware.
Yes, exactly. I use WordPress examples simply because those are my personal websites. The downside to that is, and what you guys don't see in those examples, is that my Jeep website that you saw there, that blog has been hacked, and it has Viagra and Cialis and all kinds of advertising injected into it. And I leave it that way because I want to maintain, I want to be able to visualize that, show that in live webinars and live examples to show people what link injection hacking looks like in WordPress. But as Joe pointed out, it's a popular CMS, and with popularity, the downside is the spammers go after it and they will attack it. So the beauty part of the blogging platform with 3D Cart is you're not exposed to any of that. You still have the facility to blog. And hey, if there's a functionality that you wake up one morning and say, I got to have it, well then ping the 3D cart team and tell them, I think it's important. There you go.
Yeah, and you know what? I think anybody who maintains WordPress blogs has had code injection. I have a whole
Oh,
load
yeah.
of them too outside of 3D Cart, and
Yeah,
I've been
it's
compromised
inevitable.
numerous times.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a real pain.
it's inevitable. And the way you solve that with WordPress, and this becomes a bit of a maintenance issue, is you have to stay on top of the latest version of WordPress, because
Yeah,
every time there's a hack or an injection, they find a solution for it, and then they go ahead and release a new version, and then you have to upgrade your version.
yeah.
And that takes, like, you have to pay attention, you have to do some work, you've got to trundle around on your server and update files, and if you make a mistake, your site's offline and you have to start over, and so it's not an easy thing to do.
And this is one of the reasons too why in the world of e-commerce, companies like 3D Cart and such exist, because we're a closed environment.
Exactly.
So nothing like
There's more
that can
protection
happen.
built in.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's more protection built in. And I think from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense to look to those, I don't want to call it less mainstream, but those standalone solutions, as opposed to looking at it and saying, I'm going to build my own, and I'm just going to use what's commonly available, and then
Yeah.
go from there. Because yeah, it can be cheaper, but it's not cheaper when you actually start
No.
figuring out the time you've had to invest in it, and it can actually put your business out of business, having to deal with all that crap.
Oh, positively. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 20 years. That shows my age for well, over 20 years actually. And I've had that conversation with so many people over my lifetime, which is like, well, why wouldn't I just build it on a shared web hosting account?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
with Visa, MasterCard, and the PCI regulations that are in place, the very last thing you want is a credit card stolen, and that is the value for
Yep.
putting e-commerce into closed ecosystems.
Exactly. Exactly. It's all about protecting your customer. It's all about protecting your business, and you need to manage that. And, having a trusted partner like 3D Cart goes a long way to making sure that that's managed.
I have a customer that asked, when investigating a competitive to 3D Cart e-commerce solution, we had a problem because so many of our titles are the same. They put the SKU in the title to separate the title. Is this a problem within the search engine?
No, it's not a problem in the search engines. I mean, we understand, what a SKU number is. We may not recognize it as a SKU number unless it's labeled as SKU. But the reality is that when you're selling a product, it won't just be you selling a product online. There'll be dozens, sometimes hundreds of other retailers selling the same product. And so we understand that, titles, descriptions, information in a lot of cases will be the same because it will come from the source. If everyone on this call decides to sell Black & Decker cordless drills, well then we'll all get the data that Black & Decker sends to us all. And what differentiates, though, is what you do on top of that. And this is where you have an opportunity to shine. So as your business is growing and you're looking through your data, you might find out that you have a very high profit margin available on that cordless drill. And so you really want to optimize for that. And so what you'll start doing are things that the system is capable of accepting all this information. So it's up to you to decide how you want to position yourself against your competitors. And in that example, I would do videos of the cordless drill in action. I would get down on, how long did the battery last? How long did it take to recharge? What's the physical weight of it? And not just, hey, Black & Decker says it's 1 pound, 2 ounces, but give me something that's comparable. Help me understand that that's about the same weight as a bag of coffee beans, because the average consumer can't visualize with their own mind what the weight of 1 pound, 2 ounces actually is. But if you can help it, and you can help simplify that to them, you can show them videos of the camera in action. Maybe you've got some funny stuff that's going on with it. It will make a big difference between that person choosing to buy from you versus your competitor, because you've answered questions they didn't even know they had. All of that is up to you. And so when we see that type of experience coming up, what then we see are people linking to your link to your actual product. Same cordless drill as everybody else, but they're linking to your page. That's the one they share with friends. That's the one they blog about. That's the one they share socially, because that's the one that entertained them and engaged them and got them to purchase. And again, that comes down to you. So you carefully look through your business to understand which products are performing well for you, but still have some headroom above them, or there's more value you want to extract from them, and you zone in on those. It makes going from hundreds of thousands of products down to maybe 60 or 70 a lot easier when you take that approach.
I've read that meta tags are ignored by the crawler. Is that true?
That's an oversimplification. So very classically, meta tags include the title tag, the meta description tag, and the meta keywords tag. Those are the trilogy of what is generally thought of as meta tags. And the reality is the title tag is still very important. It needs to be accurate, factual, and relevant to the content on the page as we crawl it. The meta description is still very useful because it is what shows up in the search results page right below the link that a searcher will click on. So you need to think of that meta description as your call to action. It should be accurate and relevant. And the meta keywords tag, don't care about that one. You can not fill the blanks in, or you can fill them in if you want. Again, be relevant, be thoughtful with it. Don't overstuff it. You don't need 2 or 3 keywords in there is plenty. But that's your choice. If you want to leave them blank, that's fine too, because we're not really going to care. What might care, though, are contextual advertising programs still pull signals from the meta keywords tag. So if you turn on a contextual ad program, insert that product into your web page, and then do not fill in that meta keywords tag, you might see more unrelated ads showing up because the system's a little confused.
Okay. And I always say, too, that, like, in my opinion, it's still good to use them, and you just pick 2 or 3 of the most important words about that page.
Yeah.
Just because, the whole internet, code standard is it's a real tag,
Yep.
and if you use the tag the way it's supposed to be used, no harm will ever come of it. So
Exactly. And that's when I speak at conferences or I do one-on-one sessions with businesses, that is the exact advice I give them. Follow the best practices. You're not going to go wrong. Just fill in the blank thoughtfully and relevantly and move on. What it does is it gets everybody who's working with you on your SEO programs, the editors, the programmers, everybody, it gets them in tune with you. It gets a muscle memory built that they have to do the right things every time. And that's the general thinking that you want across your organization.
we only have a couple more questions, so they'll go pretty quick here.
Sure.
One customer asks, how do we keep spammers from placing fake orders with spam messages going into them? Does that have any effect on SEO? Can we find out where they come from with this tool?
This tool will not help you find out where those guys are from, and it's not going to have any effect on SEO. What's happening when people are placing orders, that's totally between you guys, credit card processors, the 3D cart back end. That is no impact on us at all. And by and large, then it's not going to impact your rankings.
On the side note, what you may want to do is actually, if you could find that they're coming from a specific IP address or a specific IP range in your admin panel, you can restrict that IP range so that they can't do it. And for merchants who are listening who are curious as to why that happens, this tends to be third world nations that have a credit card underground of stolen numbers, and they will create a bot that will go out there and try to charge all these cards. And when they find a card that goes through, they spread the card number across their network, and there's a compromise. Of course, what it does to you is if you ship that order, you've just lost the money. But for the reality, they're using your shopping cart to check cards. Let's see. I do want to mention this. We have a new version of 3D Cart coming out in a couple weeks. And this one question is, are there management areas within 3D Cart where you would make specifically link special settings to work with the big Webmaster tools? That may be down the pipeline, but what we are adding in a couple weeks is an actual place to put the HTML verification tag, so you no longer have to try to find where to put that in the head tags.
Well done, Joe.
Yay.
Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. It does make it a lot simpler for the webmaster, though, to simply copy and paste it into their administrator's panel, and it just shows up. I think that's awesome.
Yep. And let's see. In our business, there's a half a dozen products with the same information that have very little difference in them, like maybe voltage or such. How do you do meta tags for items that are so similar?
So how I would approach this is I would identify the one that's the most popular. So let's say in this case the 12-volt model is the most popular. I would optimize the heck out of that page. Then what I would do is for all of the other items that are related to it, but maybe 3.8 volts, they might be 24 volts, they might be 120 volts, because those differences are going to be very slight and very small, but they will have unique URLs. I would use what's called a canonical tag on those other pages. And what that does is it's a little piece of code that you input on the page, and when you put that in there, it allows you to tell us that that version, so the 3.8, the 24 volt, the 120 volt, are basically duplicates of the 12 volt. Anytime somebody places a link to one of my duplicates, please pass the value to the 12 volt page. That then accrues all the value on the 12 volt page. The beauty of this is on that 12 volt page will be a link that says, hey, did you want the 3.8 volt? Did you want the 120 volt? Did you want the 24 volt? And then the searcher who's looking specifically for non-12 volt, that lower number of people, because your research told you that almost everybody wants 12 volts, those other people will still be able to access what they want, but you have one single page that all the value accrues to, and that you guys can get ranked better and drive more traffic with.
Okay, and John wanted to just make a comment that in WordPress, for people who do use it, there's a lot of different plugins, some of which will email you and contact you about the version and when you need to update the version. And I've seen a lot of those too. So yes, there's I don't know how many plugins there are for WordPress, but basically
hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, anything you want to do somewhere along the line, you can find a way to do it.
Yep. Even stuff you didn't know you wanted to do.
That's true. I've heard using programs like SEO Power Suite could help with SEO in addition to Webmaster Tools. Are the searches and other tools these programs run harmful even if you're doing white hat SEO?
Yes, they are harmful. Look at it from our perspective. It costs money every time somebody does a search. And if that search is done by an automated system, that costs Microsoft money, and there's no return on that money. So after a while, you can see where we might take a dim view of that. So if your software is abusing our processes and systems, then that's going to reflect poorly on your domain. None of those software applications are approved by any search engine. So you can feel free to use them. That's totally your call, but be careful with them. Because if they require a bad reputation because maybe other people are abusing them, the most common application for us to solve the problem is to block everybody using that software when we see it. So you need to be careful with that stuff. There are no shortcuts in this. Part of the reason I do what I do is so that you guys don't need to go buy software like that. There are plenty of legitimate systems out there that are available. Webmaster tools like this, other systems such as Moz, and all kinds of other tools are existing out there that can really help you guys understand this. I had a lady in a webinar yesterday said that she's purchased over $1,000 worth of SEO software, and which in this list was the best one to start with. And I simply apologized to her and told her it was a waste of her money. Please stop buying that software. There are no shortcuts with this stuff.
Right. I would add to that, Duane, that if we go back maybe 7 or 8 years ago, we didn't have, the search engines were pretty, new and didn't have these tools available to you. So lots of companies jumped on the bandwagon to try to create products that query the search engine and show you results and all this stuff. But between Bing and Google being the two largest and the tools that both are now giving us, there's no need for other software.
Well, if a search engine is going to do an SEO report for you and tell you what you need to focus on, why are you using a third-party software that abuses the search engine? That just doesn't work for me. And I realize, and guys, you have to trust me on this, I totally realize how self-serving that sounds. Because here's the guy who runs Bing Webmaster Tools inside the search engine telling you, why would you go anywhere else? But I can also put on my SEO hat because I run my own websites. You guys have seen them live right here. And I still don't use any of those other tools. The only single tool that I use outside of Webmaster Tools at Google and at Bing is the Yoast SEO plugin for WordPress.
And that's just because I've always used it, and that's it. It just makes it easier to fill in the blanks for myself. It doesn't actually do SEO for me. So that SEO I do because I know it.
And honestly, within 3D Cart, you don't need Yoast because what we
No,
provide you is the equivalent. So,
exactly.
right.
Exactly. That just, you could fill in the blank with anything for what I use. That just happens to be the one I use. And I know the 3D cart system is already well set up for it, so you don't even need anything for it. It's straightforward. You're off to the races.
Yeah. How do normal people find the time to do all this stuff?
Normal people become crazy people. That's how they find the time. No, I'll be honest with you, and you guys don't see it in this webinar. I shared it in the last 3D webinar, the 3D cart webinar we did, and so it's worth going back and watching that webinar, guys. This was a deep dive on the Webmaster tools. The last one we talked a lot more about things that were SEO oriented and search and social oriented. And there's a graph that I show in there of the 5 main areas that you want to spend time investing in. Content is by far number 1. Social engagement, so engaging with your customers, number 2. Number 3 is the user experience. And user experience, a lot of that's already handled for you by the 3D cart system, so you're already on a good path there. After that comes link building, and then comes SEO, the technical stuff. So if you guys really just focus on the basic best practices for SEO, which you get lots of help with through 3D cart, you focus on the usability. Again, you've got great support through 3D cart already in place, good system working there. And then you really have time to focus on that content. You know, that example that I made up of, you know, we're all selling the cordless drill and you're going to add some videos of it and do whatever else. That example is actually how you become successful on eBay. That is how successful people on eBay demonstrate their products, and it drives sales and engagement and repeat customers coming back to them and growing their reputation, which keeps their results at the top of the stack. That is not just some made-up idea. Those types of approaches work because it fills in the blank. When someone looks at a product online, they can't touch it, feel it, taste it, smell it. They can do nothing other than look at the one image you've shown them. And if that one image is taken from an angle that doesn't quite show the object the way I want to see it, I'm going to go search the internet for a different angle to see if that object is the one I want. It may or may not come back to you, but I guarantee you, if you took the opportunity to take 360-degree photography around this thing so that I could move it around and look at it and say, oh, wow, I've seen it from all the angles that matter to me. This is fantastic. I'm going to put it in my cart and buy the product because my job is to get something to solve my issue, to complete my task. My job is not to spend all day Saturday researching stuff. My job is, I want this particular part because it does this particular job. Which is the proper one for me? And then I go research on it. And if you showcase everything, then I feel much better about doing business with you. So that is an excellent area to focus your time on, right? That content side of things. The rest of it, you pick away at it as best you can. And as you learn new things, you determine whether they make a difference for you, whether they're applicable to you, and then maybe you implement them. But it's not like you have to do absolutely everything. Don't worry about that. Don't get caught up in it, and use the tools that are available.
I think, too, there's that old saying that good things come to those who wait. And, you know, starting an online business in a lot of ways is not any different than starting a brick-and-mortar offline business. And if you need to have the time to invest in it, and you need to be patient. You just don't open the doors of a retail business and, you know, you're overwhelmed with customers. I mean, it takes time for the community to find you there, and it's really no different online. In some aspects, it's even more difficult.
Yeah, it is. I'll give you an example. I'm looking out my office window, and just down below me is it's a restaurant, and the third restaurant in a row in 6 months now, they've each lasted 2 months, has closed its doors. At first, it was teriyaki, then it was a Brazilian barbecue, and recently it was a Chinese food restaurant. All 3 of them have failed, and I know the business is there. But what they have failed to do, because they came in, they had the restaurant's already set up, everything is inside, all the cooking utensils are there, they've got good parking. The problem is they failed to reach out to their local community and tell us that they are there. I work in a 26-story building with thousands of people in it.
and nowhere in our building is there a single flyer telling me that they are there and they have this food available. And so that's an example of a business that opened their doors and then failed to do anything else and assumed that people would come to them. The reality is, no. You've got to go to the people, and it takes time. It takes time and effort. It's
hence
just like any other business.
The tie-in to social media and why it is so important. Because
Yes.
if nobody talks about your business and nobody talks about you and nobody knows you're there, then nobody thinks to look for you there.
Exactly. And there's lots you can do with it. I mean, having an e-commerce business is a really great business to have if you can generate return business or a constant flow of new people coming in to buy your product. By far, my approach has been repeat customers are better customers. You've already got a relationship. It's easier to get them over the hurdle. If they set up an account with you, you already have most of their information, so it makes purchasing easier for them, builds loyalty, and so on. But you've got to kind of start that flywheel somehow, and it doesn't start on its own. And it starts with you getting out there and running your butt off.
Yeah.
That's how you start a business. Being online simply means that you don't have to pay first and last up front. That's all that means.
Right. And just like that restaurant, Duane, like, I mean, if you went there because they lured you in, they provided you with good service, the owner went out of his way to make contact with you, you probably come back into your building and you tell 4 or 5 other people how great the service was.
Oh, yeah, because I'm a sucker for Chinese food. And yet, it's out of sight, out of mind. It never popped onto my radar in a meaningful way. And so they closed before I even got to go check it out.
Yeah. So we've hit all of our questions. Anybody who's still here, which there are actually quite a few people still here listening to us, if you wanted to see the other webinar that Duane did a month or 2 ago, the easiest way, I get asked this question probably 5 times a day in our ticket system, how do I view the old webinars? Just go to Bing and search 3D Cart YouTube channel, and you'll take you right into the YouTube channel, and then you can view through all the videos that are there. It's just the easiest way.
Excellent. Well, guys, I thank you so much. I mean, a lot of you stayed overtime on this, and it's fantastic. I want to thank you for your time. If folks do have questions, they need things, @Duane Forrester reaches me easily on Twitter. If you hit me on Twitter, I'll give you Joe's personal phone number, and then you can just call him anytime you want. I'm kidding. I won't do that.
I have yours and your email address too, so there.
Yeah. You can give them my wife's cell phone number. Yeah, that'll go over well.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And as always, if you have any requests for future upcoming webinars or anything, the easiest way, we have an email address, sem@3dcart.com. It'll put tickets into our ticket system, and, I'm in there all the time, so we'd be happy to have webinars based on things that you're interested in. So thank you for attending today, and Duane, thank you so much for making the time.
Definitely. Thank you, everybody.